It is time again to share my smashing of that small paper pad. Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome. It is the Smashing That Small Paper Pad collab again that I'm doing with my friend Sarah over at Crafting and Relaxing here on YouTube and Kathy over at Stampin' Cat on Instagram. And again, it's just a collaboration where we focus on using pads smaller than 12 by 12. So this month I actually pulled out two pads. One was the Summer Ombre from Scrapping for Less, and then the other was from My Favorite Things, Party Patterns. I thought most of the colors worked fairly well together, and you know, this one is all patterns. This one kind of read to me a little more like a solid. So that's kind of why I pulled them together. And I used all of the My Favorite Things pad, and I used all of the Summer Ombre except for this pattern, which reminded me of ocean, and so I decided to save it when I could do some kind of like fun ocean themed card, or maybe I'll put it in with my vacation themed stash. But it just made me think of ocean, so I decided to hold that just in case I could use it in the future. And then these three pieces I held out, or four pieces rather, I held out because they were blue, and I am getting ready to work on red, white, and blue scraps, and I thought I could use those with that project. Other than that, these two pads are smashed. So I made two scrapbook pages, very simple. I just picked 4 patterns, trimmed them down to like 5.5 by 5.5 inch squares, added them in a grid, put my photos on, and I did go ahead and add a pink like mat for the photos. But then just kind of, I used some stickers in my stash that kind of went color-wise and focused on the theme of the photos, which was selfies. So I did 2 of these. I used different kind of the multicolored stripes just because there's only 2 of each in the pad, but I did, so that used up 8 sheets for the most part. And then I focused on cards for the rest. So if you watched my last video, which was my Not Too Shabby design team share, it was using the Critter Pops again, doing some paper piecing. And I had shared a set of 3 cards in that video. I had made one and then shared like the other 2 that I'd made. And then I had some of the stuff left over, so I went ahead and made a 4th. But that used this sketch from Robin's Craft Room. It's what inspired my cards for that. I used Viva La Verve May 2013, and didn't add like the little scallop or like the circles at the bottom. I just used a scallop punch. And then I used the last of one of these stickers. They're like dimensional, and so I had one left on the sheet, so I went ahead and used that up, and then just added some hearts to embellish. And yeah. Then I also used up some balloons that I had made out of scrap vinyl. So I guess technically I made 2. This one I just used a separate sheet. I used the white border instead of just the border of the purple paper. But I had used up some of the vinyl balloons I'd made. And you can see here where I tried to, if I could, use that ombre as the card mat, and then the pattern paper kind of as more of the focal points. And I do have scraps on the insides of all of the cards. This is I Love Sketches, September 2011. And did bring in some pink cardstock for this. And this time I actually stamped my sentiment directly onto the ombre pattern. This one is S&S sketch number 17. And this one, I used a couple of several random things from my stash. This was part of a birthday card that I had cut down and had in my stash. And I had just kind of pulled out, I wanted to do birthday cards and thinking of you cards with these pads. And so I had pulled out my birthday embellishments, and this was one of the random ones in there. And I kind of thought it fit with this sketch with that rectangular element. So it is bigger and takes up more of the card than what the sketch calls for, but I thought it made a good focal point, and I repurposed something. And these were more of those vinyl scrap balloons that I had in my stash, and so I just kind of went with a, not really a tone on tone, but monochromatic scheme on this one with the blues and the turquoise. This is my favorite thing, sketch number 162, and brought in lots of different patterns on this. 2 patterns from the ombre and 3 patterns from the My Favorite Things. Very bright, colorful birthday cards. And this one I actually made 4 of. So this is Sweet Sunday 206. And I kept these very simple. And I did use the pattern paper from My Favorite Things, pattern paper for both the card mat and the elements, but it was nice because once I cut the card mat down, the almost 2-inch strip that I had left was the perfect size to go across the card here. So it kind of worked out that, you know, I could use the scraps from one card on another card. And I also used the scraps to create the little banners up here, and then I just punched some hearts and also brought in some other vinyl scrap embellishments from my stash, those little vinyl hearts. This one I made 3 of. It's My Favorite Things 186. And again, used the ombre as a card mat and paired it with a pink polka dot just because of the pink in the background. Kind of simple birthday cards. This is My Favorite Things 181. And another Thinking of You. This time I brought in a scallop circle die as well as a regular stitch circle die. And then did Thinking of You and Happy Birthday. This one I was trying to use up some of the scraps that were on my table. So this is just a Simply Stampin' Challenge, and just used, again, pieces of scrap that I had, and I punched some circles out of some other scraps, and then went with the Thinking of You sentiment. This one I didn't use a sketch. I just, it was loosely based off one of the ones I had used before, but instead of the circle, I just brought in a rectangular element and the banner that was left over from the strip. And then I had a small scrap of this ombre pattern, and so I punched a heart because I thought it just needed a little bit of something else there. I made 3 of this Sweet Sunday number 176, trying to use up a bunch of the strips that I had left after I had cut down card mats from the ombre pad. So this one's pinks and purples, and I did the stitched scallop circle again. And I pulled in the same, it was one of the patterns here that I had a bigger piece left of, and so I punched or cut my circle from that to go in between the 2 white pieces. This one is pinks and purples again, just pulled in some cardstock, and this one is very bright with the yellows and the orange and the rainbow colors. And then those strips were 6 inches long, and so once I cut those down for that card, I had some square pieces left that were just shy of 2 by 2 inches. And so I went ahead and made a grid style card. And on this one, it's kind of yellows. I tried to keep it theme, like group them together a little bit. So I went with the yellows multicolored on here, and then did all the purples together on that one. And it was a little plain, so I had some punched hearts already out of other scraps, and so I just decided to add those onto those squares. Focusing on using up the scraps at this point, this is Mojo Monday 266. Brought in several different scraps, combined the ombre and the patterns, and then I also had a border sticker left on a sticker sheet. It was the only sticker left on there, Why I have sticker sheets like that have one sticker left, I don't know. So I use that up to clear that out of my stash as well. Paper play sketches, number 30. And I just kept it simple with the scraps that I had left, but then added a little bit of something extra down at the bottom with the hearts. And then these cards are using the CC Designs Inchies circle die. And actually it's backwards. There's a stitched card mat around the circles, and I got this from the Not Too Shabby shop and keep forgetting to use it. I've been wanting to play with it and then just keep forgetting to use it once I just get caught up in using up my scraps. And so I went ahead and cut the main part out in white cardstock and then just used the scraps I had, kind of laid them on, just kind of haphazardly on here so that I could get as many full circles as I could out of each piece of scrap, and then just fit them in wherever kind of I wanted on the cards based on, I had a bunch of the purples, so there's a lot of those. But the one nice thing is sometimes on these cover dies, even if you have like the same shapes, you almost have to keep track of where you cut it out of because they don't all mix and match very well. But these circles were all the same size. Putting them in, they went in perfectly. There's no gaps. So I love that in cover die. And then I just added a sentiment down here. So these were kind of plain, but like I said, I had wanted to play with that die. And so it was a kind of a different use of my scraps than what I normally do. And then of course I had a whole bunch of strips left over. And so I did one of my strip scrap cards where I just took adhesive and laid it on a piece of cardstock and or put adhesive on a piece of cardstock and then laid out all my strips in a diagonal. And then I had some green cardstock left on my table, so I just put that behind my sentiment to help it stand out. And then when I had put the scraps on these, I had gotten some half circles as well. And so I just brought some of those in just to add a little scallop detail at the bottom, again, to kind of help the sentiment stand out from all of the busyness going on in the background there. So that is what I got from the 2 pads. So I ended up getting 35 cards and 2 12x12 scrapbook pages. And then, like I said, I'm going to hold these for future projects. And then that used up these 2 6x6 pads, 2 more pads out of my stash this month, which feels really good because my drawer was getting a little too full. But please be sure to check out Sarah and Kathy's projects as well. Their channels and pages will be linked in the description box below. And I hope you guys enjoyed and got a little bit of inspiration for using some of those smaller pads in your stash. Thank you so much for your time today and hope you all have a very crafty day.